Hello fam, so today we are back with another tutorial. In our last video we learned how to model a fan, is a standing fan. So in this tutorial we are going to look at how to model and animate a ceiling fan. So let's jump right into the tutorial. Okay, so we are going to delete our default queue, select and delete. Let's on the screencast keys. Okay. So we are going to bring in a cylinder. Shift A and bring in a cylinder. And then let's scale it down a bit. Let's go to the edit mode and then scale everything down a bit. Okay. And then we will now scale it on the Z axis. So S and then Z. Let's scale it to flatten it out. Something like this. Okay, something like this is okay. Okay, I think we should flatten it down more. Okay, and then go to face select mode and then select the two faces and I to insert something like this, and then we're going to press Alt E and extrude around the mouse and bring it out like this. Okay, so let's select this down face here and then let's press I once more to insert and then grab G to grab and then move it a bit on the Z axis. Now you can scale it in a bit more and then you can extrude it again, E to extrude, and then I to insert. Okay, so let's come to this face and then select E to extrude and then S to scale it down a bit. Okay, so now we can go back to our object mode, have our base fan. Then let's add a subdivision modifier. So we'll come to modifier and then add your subdivision surface modifier to smoothen everything out. Okay, so something like this. So let's increase it to 2 and then right click and then shade smooth. So now let's sharpen the edges. So go to the edit mode and then let's come to the edge select mode, Alt and click these two edges, Control B to bevel in order to sharpen our edges. Okay, so it's cool. Now let's add another edge loop, Control R to sharpen this side. Okay, and then select this edge loop, Control B to bevel and sharpen it out. Okay, and then let's sharpen this edge, Control R to add an edge loop and then sharpen this loop over here. Okay, and then select this top face, go to the face select this top and then I to insert all the way here, somewhere like this. Okay, and then I again to insert once more. Okay, and then numpad 1 to go to the front view. Then I'm going to extrude this side out so that we create a fan holder. Yeah, fan holder. Select something like this. Okay, then Control R, add another edge loop to sharpen it. Okay, and then let's select the top face, then X to delete the faces. Okay, so let's select these faces over here, hold down the Alt key, select these faces and then go to the front view and Shift D to select and then move them up on the Z axis somewhere like this. Okay, it's cool. And then we are going to select these edges come to the select mode and then select these edges, alt select, and then E to extrude, and then Z to extrude it on the Z axis somewhere like this. Okay, and then you can select these edges and then move them down a bit, double G, and then move it down a bit. Okay, and then Control B to bevel it out, to smoothen it out. Okay, so I think we're okay with the head. So let's add the last part. Select this, hover around it, and then use the L key to select linked, hover on it, and then L to select link. Now go to the front view, Shift D to duplicate, and then without clicking, just tap on your S key and then Z and then -1. So it will duplicate it, and then it will scale it, and then it will flip it on the Z axis. So S, Z, and then -1 to flip your selection. Then we move it up a bit to this place. Okay, so I think we're done with our head. So now we are going to add the blades, the fan blades. Okay, so let's come to the object mode and then add a plane, Shift A, and then plane, and go to the top view, and then let's go to edit mode, scale down our plane for the size, go to the front view, and then enter your wireframe view, and then I want to move it up. I'll go to the, okay, let's go to the top view and then move it out, G and then Y to move it on the Y axis. Okay, scale it down, something like this, bring it back to this side. Let's scale it down more, then bring it back on the Y axis. Okay, so let's move it up, G and then Z to move it on the Z axis around somewhere here. Okay, and then okay, so the position I think is okay. Can move it back a bit, move it on the Y axis a bit, then move it on the Z axis. Let's adjust it just to be on top of our head. Okay, so let's go back to the top view. Then select this edge and then Shift D to duplicate, and then move it on the Y axis. And then we're going to scale this up, scale it to something like this, and then E to extrude, and then move it on the Y axis, something like this. Okay. And then I think we should scale this side a bit. Okay, and then scale this inward a bit. Okay, so I think this is okay for our shape, for the shape of our. Let's go to the side view and then look at the length of our blade. I think we can increase it a bit, so let's select it, move it a bit more on the Y axis. Okay, I think this is okay. So let's select this, L to select link, and then move it upward a bit, or you rather move it down a bit. Let's move it on the Z axis, move it down just a bit. Okay, now we're going to add a subdivision modifier, so let's go to modifier and then add the subdivision modifier and then increase it to 2. And then we are going to go to the edit mode and then add edge loops to sharpen them out as usual. Control R, edge loop, and then sharpen. I want to add 2 edge loops in the middle to sharpen our edges for us. Now we are going to add another edge loops over here to sharpen our blade holder. A bit closer. Okay. Okay, so The next thing we are going to do is to add solidify modifier. So I want to add a solidify modifier to our blade. So let's come here, modifiers, and then solidify. So let's reduce the modifier, the strength of our solidifier. Let's reduce the thickness. Okay, I think something like this. Let's decrease it a bit. It's too thick. Okay. I think this is okay for our solidify modifier. So I'll go back to the edit mode and then select this. And then we can move it down a bit. Drag and move it down on the z-axis a bit. Okay. Then you can shift smooth. So what I'm going to add next is our bolt, something to hold this fan. Just an addition. So let's go to the edit mode. Okay, before we do that, let's apply the solidify modifier first. Let's move it up. So move our solidify modifier up, and then Ctrl A to apply. And then we can go to the edit mode, go to the top mode, and then add Shift A to add another cylinder. So we come to this properties tab, and then I'm going to reduce the edges all the way to 6. Okay, so this is what we want. Now let's scale it down and move it on the y-axis. Scale everything down. Go to the side view and then bring it up on the z-axis. Scale everything down. Scale everything down. Then we can move it back here. So this is holding the fan, the blade holder, to the head. So somewhere like this. And then scale it on the z-axis. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we are going to select only the edges. So let's come to the edge mode. Edge select mode. Select the first one and then the next one, and then hold down your control and the shift key on your keyboard, and then use the number pad plus key to select in that sequence. And after you selected everything, Ctrl B to bevel it a bit, and then go to our face select mode. Select the top and the bottom face, then I to insert, and then I to insert once more. Insert it a bit, and then you can scale it in. So you can scale it in, and then while you press the S, then you press the Shift Z to isolate it on only the X and the Y axis without scaling it on the Z axis. Okay, so this is where we get the bolt holding down the fan and the head. So you can go back and then L and then select everything, and then you can Shift D to duplicate, and then move it on the Y axis. Then we can scale everything down, and then move it here. So this is what we also hold down the blade and the fan together, and then Shift D, and then we duplicate it and then move it on the X axis. Okay, so this wasn't really necessary, but it just adds some kind of realism to the whole thing. Okay, so now we're done with the blade. So what we are going to do next is we are going to add an array modifier. So go to the top view, #7, and then add modifier, array modifier, and then increase the count to 3. And then we are going to use, instead of using this relative offset, we are going to use an object offset. So let's Shift A and then add an empty, add a plain axis, and then select our fan blade, and then uncheck this relative offset, and then we are going to use the object offset, and then select the empty. So we are going to rotate this empty in 120 degrees. So we have our fan duplicated around our blades, duplicated around our head how we want it. Okay, so this is our final model. So we are done with the fan. Very simple. So you can now select the blade and then apply the array modifier, Ctrl A, move on it and then apply it, Ctrl A. So we're done with the modeling of our fan. So what we can do next, what we want to do next is add a simple material before our animation. So we can save our work at this point and then add a material to it. So now we are in our shader editor and to add a very simple material. So it's a very simple material. Just add, come to this drop down, select this material, and then we are going to use this principal BSDF. So let's split our window so that we can look at our render over here. So we change this to cycles instead of EV, and then I went to the rendered mode to see what you are doing. Okay, so nothing sophisticated over here, so just change the roughness to 0.2, and then we change the color to black. Okay, yeah, so we can select and then apply, Ctrl L, and then link materials, and then we have our material applied to all of the rest of the model. So let's do the animation first. So now to do the animation, I want to separate this head and then join it with the blades here so that we animate only that part without animating this part holding the fan. So let's select this head, go to the edit mode, and then we are going to click out here to deselect everything, and then hover and then press L to select. So we don't want this part to be selected, so what we can do is go to the face select mode and then hold down the Alt key and select this part, and then press Y to separate that part from this head, and then click on the head once more, and then L to select, and then select this part also, and then let's separate it, P to separate, and then separate by selection, and then we can come back to the object mode, select this head over here, and then select the fan blades, and then Ctrl J to join them together. Okay, so now we have only this part separate, so we are going to animate only that part to move around. So the animation is going to be very simple. So what we are going to do for the animation, we bring our properties tab here. So we want to animate this fan on the Z axis, so the rotation on the Z rotation, going to be spinning around on the Z rotation endlessly. So what we are going to do is on this Z rotation, you can see that it's moving. When we move on the negative axis, it's going the right way, so we want to animate it on the negative side. So what you are going to do is just click on the Z axis and then minus hashtag frame and enter. Sorry, minus hashtag, then let's type it in small letters, frame. Let's try hashtag frame. Okay, I think let's come back to this. Let's try it once more. Easy. Let me see rotation, and then hashtag frame. Okay, so this is what we want to do. So it will automatically add a driver to your Z rotation. I didn't know why it wasn't working in the shading tab, but you see, you just type in the hashtag and then frame, and then you see that if you play, you have the rotation animated, but you can see it's moving too fast. So you want to reduce the speed. So what you are going to do is type on the frame and then divide it by maybe 5, divided by 5. So you see it's going to slow down the animation. So let's say you want to do it frame divided by 2. Okay, so this speed is okay, but you can see it's moving on the wrong direction. So what you can do is go back to it and then add the minus frame and divided by 2. So it's going to move in the right direction. So that's how you animate the fan. Simple, and it's going to spin throughout the whole animation. You can change the speed if you want, depending on the variable or integer that you divide it with. It's going to determine the speed of your animation. So this is okay. So that's it for the animation. So let's do some basic lighting and rendering. So before we do the lighting, let's add some walls. So shift and add a cube. Okay, you can scale the cube up, scale it up all the way, something like this. Then let's delete this face delete. Then you can select this face and then bring it down as our ceiling. Okay, so you can bring it down to this level. Okay, so that's our ceiling. And then let's move to the camera view. So you can see that this camera view is not what we want. So what we are going to do is I'm going to move the view to something like this, the camera to capture, and then let's press hold down your control and then the alt key and then numpad 0. So you see, to capture from the view that you are. So we are now in the camera view. So let's come in and then we can move into the camera view. And then we are going to unlock the camera so that we can move through our camera. So something like this is okay. And we can increase the scale a bit. Okay, so this is okay. So now let's do some basic lighting. I want to add some basic lighting. Let's come to the rendered mode to see what you are doing here. Okay, unlock this. Control B just to render what is in the camera. Okay, so to add the lighting, let's add an area lamp. Shift A and then area lamp. Area. Okay, so we can move this on the x-axis maybe to this side, and then we are going to increase it, increase the power, come to this setting and then increase the power something like 100, so that our light is going to be bright throughout the room. Okay, and then Shift D to duplicate. Before you duplicate, you can even change the color, maybe to something like blue or something bluish. Okay, and then Shift D, and then move it on the X axis, and then you can change this to something like 50, and then maybe you can change the color also, something yellowish. And we can also rotate it a bit, maybe R, and then rotate it on the Y axis a bit, just to add some effects. Move it down a bit, and then can rotate it a bit. And maybe you can just leave it how it is. Okay, so that's some basic lighting, and maybe you can even add another one here. And you can add another one here. So just to add more scale Z -1, and then you can make this white, pure white, and then you can reduce strength something like 3. Okay, now let's add some basic texturing. This one, just change the color just a bit. Okay, so that's all for our texturing. So let's look at some render settings that you can do for this. So let's come to this render settings. So it's on the cycles. Then you can change the render, this render samples to something like 100, shouldn't be outrageous. Then you can come to this light part. So these are the basic render settings that I normally use. So you can change this light bounces to 4, then uncheck this reflective and refractive option here. Okay, and then you can check this simplify, and in the simplify options we have this culling option here. You can check this camera culling, and then we select all our items. We select everything excluding the camera. Deselect the camera and then select this last, and then come to this object properties, and then come to this visibility, and then the culling, use camera cull. Before you click this use camera cull, you hold down your alt key. Make sure you hold down your alt key before you click, so that it will check for all other objects that you selected. Okay, so that's the basic settings. And maybe you can come to this output settings. You can either leave it 100, or maybe you want to have the resolution for quick renders. Okay, and then we are going to select a part that you want to render your animation to. You click here, you create a folder to select where you are going to render your sequence, and that's it. You hold down the control and then F12 to render your animation. So that's all for today. And I also forgot to add another thing. One option that we should check for our animation is the motion blur. So you come down here, you can see that we have a motion blur here. So make sure it's checked so that you get your motion blur in the final render for your animation. So that's going to give you a more realistic feel, a more realistic render. So make sure you check your motion blur before you render your animation sequence. Okay.